I'm not texting.
And when you're ready, give us the go-ahead when you're ready.
All right. Today's reading is from Matthew chapter 24. But about that day and hour, no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. For as the days of Noah were, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing until the flood came and swept them all away. So too will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then two will be in the field, one will be taken, and one will be left. Two women will be grinding meal together. One will be taken, and one will be left. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
A 14-year-old girl sits in a pew and listens to a preacher thunder about the second coming. The second coming is coming soon. All the signs are here. And she is terrified. Raised a Catholic, her understanding of the second coming has been limited to the words of the Apostles' Creed. Christ will come again to judge the living and the dead. Now she worries that people she loves may be left behind. She sits next to a friend who won't even attend school dances because she doesn't want Jesus to find her dancing when he returns. And she wonders, how can she trust a God that both saves and destroys, who gives and takes away? 45 years later, it's pretty clear the second coming wasn't quite as imminent as that preacher suspected. In fact, Jesus is quite clear in today's reading that no one knows the day or the hour these events will occur, not even him. But one thing that is very clear is that whatever's going to happen is going to be unexpected. The imagery in this passage is so dramatic because of the reversals. People are eating and drinking, giving in marriage, and then they're swept away by a flood. People are just working in the field, and one is suddenly snatched away. These images really turn the world on its head and make us feel like we don't know what's real. I can recall several such incidents from my own life. Many years ago, my wife was the air traffic manager at San Jose Mineta International Airport. And one morning we were awakened very early by a phone call. And as my wife, I overheard her speaking on the phone to one of her controllers. I saw her reach for the remote and turn the TV on. And as it blazed to life, we were greeted with images of a smoking New York skyscraper. As we watched, we saw a plane strike the adjacent tower. And in that moment, we both knew that something very deliberate and very terrible was happening. Our 6-year-old son was laying in bed between us, and my first thought was how frightened he would be if he awoke to those images. So I made her turn off the TV and go into another room to watch the reporting. And as I lay there next to my son, I still recall the uncertainty of those moments, knowing that our country was under attack, but not knowing the scope of that attack. Should I even send my son to school that day? Would it be safe? In that moment, everything I thought I knew about the world got turned upside down. I had had a similar experience when, after 48 hours of hard labor, the daughter whose birth we were so eagerly anticipating was born with Down syndrome. And again, a few years ago, when my colleague and friend, a surgeon, called to tell me that my wife's biopsy results were positive for lymphoma. These were moments when my own world was turned upside down. I'm sure many of you have had your own upside down moments. In fact, even our call may have been a moment where everything we thought we knew about our lives and the direction they were going got turned completely upside down. In moments when we get the breath knocked out of us, when we get swept off our feet, it's easy to question our faith in a loving and just God. In today's gospel reading, Jesus is trying to equip his disciples to maintain their faith, knowing the trials that are ahead for them with his death upcoming. He gives them two instructions. He tells them, you can say this with me, keep awake, and be prepared. So what does this mean exactly? Doctoral student Timothy J. Christian wrote a commentary on Matthew 24, and in that he said, in Matthew 24, the disciples asked Jesus two questions, and Jesus answers two different questions. Christian calls this a corrective, a technique used repeatedly by Jesus throughout the Gospels to move the disciples from their own concerns to the things that he's trying to teach them. In this case, he knows that he's told them that he's leaving, but that he will return. And the disciples are asking him questions about that, like anxious children whose parent is going on a business trip. And Jesus knows that he is leaving them, these anxious children, to carry on his ministry. And he's trying to move them from a state of dependency on his physical presence to a more independent state where they can carry on his work without him physically present. He demonstrates this very aptly in the pericope that follows today's reading, the story of the faithful servant. His entreaty to the disciples to keep awake at first struck me as a little bit contradictory. On the one hand, he's telling us no one knows the day and the hour these things will happen, and then he says, but keep awake. So if we're not supposed to be listening for signs of the apocalypse or the parousia, what are we supposed to be keeping awake for? Some of you may have read the commentary by Mary Lynn Hudson, where she proposes that keeping awake may mean staying alert to God's presence in the world. What if, instead of listening for signs of cataclysm, what we were really listening for were the subtle signs of our beloved Creator's presence? The fortunate coincidence, the unexpected kindness, the comforting presence of angels, sudden inspiration, a moment of clarity, profound gratitude for the beauty of creation. Keeping alert to God's presence can see us through the difficult reversals and unexpected happenings in our lives, even when they're not pretty. On September 11, 2001, passengers stormed the cockpit of an airplane that had been hijacked by terrorists and wrestled it to the ground, preventing it from striking its intended target and martyring themselves in the process. And God was present. My daughter is the greatest blessing I've ever been given and has taught me more about what it means to be human than the other 8 billion people on this planet put together. And God is present. My wife's cancer is in remission, but the fact of her illness gave us license to cash in our reward points and take that dream vacation where my son reconnected with a young woman he'd met 5 years earlier who is now his fiancée. And God is present. We can trust that God will be present as we go forward with our ministries, even in the upside down times, even in the sudden reversals, even through all the uncertainties. As one scholar phrased it, we cannot postpone fulfilling our commitments to the persons we aspire to be. As another scholar put it, our greatest teacher, keep awake, be prepared. God